recent video, somebody commented and asked or suggested that I take a look at Wanderhome, and then pretty quickly thereafter, a couple of other people chimed in to say that they thought I would like it. And it was a game I had never heard of, but I looked it up and am, first of all, thankful to the various viewers who chimed in about it for the initial suggestion and the follow up suggestion, and to the designer for sending me this copy of Wanderhome. Is a very different game than many RPGs. It has no dice. You see dice here, which I will be using to randomize some things that go on in the game. But the game itself, there's no dice, there's no conflict. It is a game of peaceful interaction, of a world where animals live peacefully with other animals and species, and it is a game about exploration and journeying. And we'll just read a little bit what the back of the book has to say. It's a pastoral fantasy tabletop role-playing game set forth in a world of grassy fields, mossy shrines, herbs, herds of bumblebees, rabbits in sundresses, geckos with suspenders, starry night skies, and the most beautiful sunsets you can imagine. It is a imagination, collaborative, narrative storytelling kind of game. It can be played with the essentially the equivalent of a game master. I can't remember what that is called here, but it can also be played without one person acting that way. It can be played with a group of people, all sort of collaboratively acting to fill that role. I, of course, am going to play it solo in the purest sense of the word, meaning that I'm going to be both the game master and the creator of the story. I am going to demonstrate gameplay. I'm sure we're not going to complete any type of full session or journey, but I want to give you a flavor for how this game works. And as I said, I'm going to be doing as much choosing of the options randomly as possible. You can do this explicitly, of course, if you want, but I want to let the randomness help me at least establish the initial story and give you a sense of how I feel this book can serve not only as a narrative role-playing game, but also as a workbook, in essence, a workshop for you to exercise your narrative storytelling capabilities, interacting with a written game world and becoming comfortable with developing stories from prompts. I think it's extremely useful that way. It also, I think, would be extremely great to run as a narrative storytelling game for kids, because it is no conflict explicitly. The goals of the game, if you are staying true to the spirit of the game, you are working collaboratively to address problems and issues. There is kindness is privileged, and all sorts of good things that, as a parent, I think it is nice to teach children. I will say that in contemplating playing a game with no conflict, it really did cause me to think about how much in my own role playing I do rely on the inherent nature of conflict to drive story. Even though I would describe most of my sessions as relatively conflict free, and the types of stories I develop, I think, tend to be less about conflict and more about exploration or trying to find or get or solve something, it is very easy to become reliant on combat and conflict to drive story, and that does not exist here. Ditto, the mechanics of this game do not involve dice whatsoever. There really are very few mechanics, the one being this concept of earning and spending a token, which isn't even really clearly defined. I'll probably use some visible thing for that, where in essence you get a token for certain things and you can spend a token to do certain things. That's basically it. Much of the game is, as mentioned, just collaborative storytelling and development based on prompts that are given. So we're going to start out. I'm going to create 3 characters, and I will do this randomly. The characters are considered here as playbooks. So each type of character is given a 4-page spread, and their attributes and such are described in that way. I'm going to do a random roll. There's 15 of them, so I'm just going to roll randomly a d20, and we will eliminate any of the higher values and just re-roll. So we'll just give this a roll. Why am I doing 3? Well, I'm doing 3 because I feel like I want to have interaction among, and it feels like for this type of game that is needed. So the 4th one, so we're going to get a firelight, whatever that is, and we're going to get a guardian, firelight, a guardian, and oops, that was a 20. Firelight, a guardian, and a 1, 2, 3, and a pilgrim. So let me get that set up. All right, so I made up 2 of the characters off camera, and we'll do a little bit on the 3rd character on camera. I decided actually not to go random here. I chose the name Almundine, the Firelight, for my Firelight, and actually did pick from the Game Master's Apprentice, not randomly, but just using those cards as prompts. I decided to go with a raccoon to match the beautiful illustration here. And the character here he's here for everyone. He's endlessly patient. He's not a good judge of character. And I put a little arrow next to this because to me, this is suggestive of something that could have a narrative direction or impact in the future, nor is he properly feminine. He's wearing a mud-soaked cloak. He has a box of medical supplies, a small and practical knife, and a book of small rituals. Again, I put an arrow here because that is suggestive to me of something to come. And these were all chosen from the actual material here. And what has been lost is Wisp, which is a small and forgotten, many-faced god who is in love with my Firefly. My Firefly is Thora, and she is nervous, and she was rescued when she was small by Almundine. She also is luminescent, and the red keyword is something that is born of trauma, and the blue underline is an indication, again, from the source material that this is something magical. And I just put a reminder here. I basically copied this information here, that this Firelight is the character who is going to be forward-thinking, and their light is shining bright, and they will always show us the way. The questions to be answered about this character are on page 62. I made a note of that because we will continue on doing this. And he is carrying a rusted iron lantern that his mother kept lit for him. Again, a note there that this could be something related to our developing story. Right now, we just have the one character, and my second character is Oba the Guardian. Oba the Guardian is a bear and has this ward, this child that he is protecting. And the description here says, "Hold your ward close to your heart. Someday the world will hurt them, but this will not be that day. They are alive. Their care is parental, protective, and unconditional." And what people always assume, I followed this prompt again, choose 2, you are generally are, and 2, people always assume you are. I said that Oba is level-headed and organized and assumed to be, but not necessarily, fatherly and open-hearted. And this, to me, this open-hearted is something that could potentially have some narrative advancement here. In terms of what Oba has a cloak big enough to hide the ward, reading glasses, a sturdy cane, and thick, muddy boots, suggestive of wisdom and a long time spent traveling the world. The ward themselves is called Rayed, and they were found near a battlefield, and they are described as being lost. And the book here simply says lost, but I clarified for myself spiritually, emotionally, and literally lost. So lost in many senses of the word. We're given a prompt here. It says, choose what about this ward You die to defend. And I just went right for the first one. They can always find the beauty in the world. They are crafty or poetic, and I made them poetic. So there's some sense that Oba the Guardian is going to be protective of something good that this ward who was found near a battlefield, found in trauma, still has. The other attributes that the ward has is they have a scar placed by an oracular and pensive god, and they also have a notebook. It wasn't specified as old, but I made it an old notebook that had been gifted to them by a caring teacher. So suggestive of the fact that at some point they were not lost, that they had been cared for, and yet a battlefield perhaps cost them their parents or something. We don't yet know. That is something that will also be developed. I think this found near the battlefield, to me, is something of significance, as is perhaps this old notebook. And now the last one that I had rolled up was the Pilgrim. So we're going to go through and I will decide what the Pilgrim, what the attributes are, and we will have our 3 characters. I'll spare you the time spent with my writing this down, but you can see my thought process here. The Pilgrim. The gods have given you a path forward, a place you hope can finally give you what you seek. Some days you worry you'll never make it there at all. You are alive. Your care is enduring, faithful, and expressed one step at a time. So again, going with the concept of picking up the imagery here, I guess this is a newt. I guess this is a newt. So our pilgrim's going to be a newt, and choose true you try to be, and 2 you've given up on. I think we're gonna say that we're going to try to be reflective and patient. And what we've given up on is, I think we're going to say we've given up on being wise. That maybe there's a certain sense of just lack of maybe care, or sort of maybe more like careworn would be one. And given up on trying to be any type of, well, we're just going to say any type of masculine or feminine. 3 or 4 to describe our look. Again, sort of picking up with this, I like the concept of, well, I like this concept of a leather-bound book of poems. Again, that says to me, suggestive of something that could be narratively developed. Maybe there's a connection between this newt and the ward, who is described as poetic. We've got some patchwork jacket, suggestive of maybe an itinerant personality, and perhaps a slightly inaccurate map of the area. It says here, a god or omen instructed you to pack your bags and travel somewhere very far from the land you called home. Choose 2 rumors or stories you've heard about this place, one that is actually true. So let me think about this. Well, again, I'm seeing this theme of a teacher, so maybe we'll go for seeking the home of the one teacher who knows the secret to pure serenity. It is a lagoon or a monastery. Now, this concept that one of these is true and one isn't, I'm going to have to develop this narratively, so I'm not sure how to incorporate 2 of these things, but I think we'll just leave that for right now a little bit undeveloped. And moving on here, choose the sign of your faith. Tell the table why you believe it'll never lead you astray. So I think we're going to go with, well, we could keep up this literary theme and have that our faith is in literature. But I don't know. I like this concept just here, the first one, an ancient iron necklace forged by an ancestor anchoring you to your village and its gods. We did say earlier that this pilgrim is, well, obviously a pilgrim, yet the sign of faith, what is key to their character, has to do with ancestry and anchoring to a village. So there is a sense here of a conflict in this, that this character is conflicted in some way. And I like that concept, that this is a conflicted character. And so there we have the 3, oh, we didn't give this character a name. So let's give this character a name, just pulling in. There's names here, Ivor, let's see. Loving the names. Sinclair, no. Chain the Gecko Pilgrim. pilgrim. Akio. Let's go with Akio. Akio is going to be the name of our gecko pilgrim, and I will create their character sheet now. What I'm going to do next is go back to Almondine, the Firelight, and indeed all the characters, and revisit the things that when I put them into the character felt to me like they could be further developed a little bit. And for Almondine, I identified this. One of the things was this book of small rituals. And again, that Almondine, the Firelight, is leading the way, but is not a good judge of character. So this is giving us some sense of uncertainty, for example, and also that they're carrying this lantern that their mother kept. But for the Book of Small Rituals, I want to give a little history here. And for that, I'm going to go to this Arcane Artifacts and Curios book by Madeline Hale. And I'm going to roll on, this is organized by type of item, and there is a section on books. So let's see, we don't know, it just says a book of rituals, so that kind of sounds like a spell book. I think we'll go to spell books, and everything in here is given not only what it looks like and what it does, these are magical things, but the history of it. And if you know my play style at all, you know that I'm often very concerned with the history of things insofar as they are influencing the present day. So we got a 9, and in this case, this is a spellbook of absorption. A spellbook bound in shiny silver fabric, a large crystal covers the front cover and it's held shut with silver clasps. It has a 10% chance of absorbing any spell cast at the user. The user can cast the spell at any point within 1 hour. The spellbook was created by Phineas Fleming Farthing, a quirky bookbinder who wanted nothing more than to be a magician. One day, after hours of experimenting with little spells and enchantments, he crafted this book. News of his magical spellbook reached the University of Magic, and he was soon hired as their premier bookbinder. So this is giving me, it's interesting because now, again, in this Wanderhome, there isn't necessarily magic per se, as in wizards and spells and things like that, although there are magical elements, of course. And so this Book of Small Rituals is described as something that can absorb magic, presumably bad things, and was crafted by somebody who aspired to being magical. And so in that sense, it is something that can absorb bad things, and it's sort of aspirational in representing somebody's dream. It represents the height of somebody's dream. So we don't know how Almondine came to have this, but this may come into play narratively. We will see. So we've given that little backstory to Almondine's item, I should say. Oba the Guardian, there was this old notebook gifted by a caring teacher, something that Oba was carrying. So let's see what, now that, could that be the same magician, perhaps? The same person who gave the spellbook of absorption? I don't know. Now we have this, let's see, is there a notebook per se described? Well, there isn't a notebook, but there are journals. So we'll go to the journals entry and we'll give it a roll and see what kind of journal we got in 18. A dictation journal. A thick, official-looking journal bound in black leather with silver clasps. An official emblem of some kind has been stamped on the cover in silver foil. It automatically copies down everything the user dictates in neat handwriting. The history, these journals were popular among the King's Council. Now, this guardian here is the guardian of this ward who was found near a battlefield as lost. Is it possible that this ward is perhaps the royalty in some way, that or part of a palace community, because this one was owned by Councilman Ofar Khan, a sneaky man who was arrested after a servant overheard him dictating his plans to overthrow the king. So this journal, it's a dictation journal, and it is somehow held by this child. And I'm going to note down the page of this because I may need to refer to this, that it was somehow someone was arrested because he was trying to be rebellious against the king. And maybe that was the ward's father, and maybe this council person was sent out to war. I don't know. But it says it was gifted by a caring teacher. Well, you know what? It could be a memory of the father. I don't know. But that's just something we're going to remember ourselves. And then the final thing is, here we also have a theme here. We have a leather-bound book of poems. Now again, I did not choose this randomly, remember. So I was going through and choosing things. I guess I would overtly think this, but books and things mean things to me. So a book of poems. We're back here. I guess we'll count that as nonfiction, and we'll see what type. We'll see what we got there. Oh, a 20. All right. That's a dictionary, a seemingly average dictionary. The user can pull out one physical representation of every word in the dictionary. That's pretty cool. For example, if the user summons the word sword, they can pull a sword straight out of the pages. This item cannot be returned to the book. The history was enchanted by a hedge mage who was known for causing trouble in town with his raucous experiments. Excited by his new discovery, he pulled the word death from the pages. He was very surprised when death itself sprung from the book and stole his soul away to the afterlife. Well, this is interesting to me because what this says to me, we have that description, but we're talking here about a book of poems, and it says to me that somehow that this poetry is reality, really, or can impact reality, or that there's something about the written poetic word here that is extremely strong and almost what's the word I'm looking for? Directive, basically, that it can influence, can change things, that basically that spoken words can change the way we see the world, and indeed what the world actually is. And remember, this character is conflicted because this character is one that is wearing this ancient iron necklace forged by an ancestor linking them to a village, yet, and that's the sign of their faith, yet they are a pilgrim, they're a wanderer. So there's like a discrepancy there. And in fact, I want to let's find out more about the necklace, because I know there are necklaces in here. So let's do give us one more thing to think about before we locate ourselves in a place. And we will see the necklace is a 12. Gimlet's amulet of bug blasting, a small green stone on a silver chain. The faint scent of eucalyptus emanates from the smooth gem. Insects and arachnids of any size or type cannot get within 5 feet of the wearer. If a bug does happen to get past the barrier, it explodes loudly and violently. These pendants are not rare in the southern and more temperate territories and can be found scattered through the cities. This one in particular was handmade by a witch who was tired of mosquitoes bothering her as she harvested plants by moonlight. Well, that actually makes sense to have like a traveling companion. Links them to the village, like maybe it was given to the pilgrim as a sort of send-off. Maybe it was given to the pilgrim as a kind of send-off thing to wear and have while traveling. So this is basically an anti-bug necklace given by a witch. Back to Wanderhome. We are going to figure out where we are setting out, and to do that, we are going to be rolling. The first thing we're going to roll is D3. This is a D3. So we're going to roll a D3. We got a 2. And we're going to be, this is sort of our home place is Verdant, and we will roll a D6 for what we get in there. And we're at a hillock. I think that's how you pronounce that. And we should be able to find that here. A hillock is a place in the foothills of a great and looming presence. I guess a mountain? This place can always describe what we stand in the shadows of, show a threat that's up ahead, ask, what are you worried lies up ahead, and give them a token if they're right. So we're going to choose 2 aesthetic elements. We have a sheltered valley, a strange pile of stones, a deep gorge, scattered fragments of a civilization, evidence of distant strangeness, a quiet foreigner from higher up, something else of your own invention, and one folklore about this place. The goat who slept for 100 years, the fallen star and the story she told, the hidden treasures of the hyena king, or something else of your own invention. So this is where we are. We're going to take a pause here with where we are to answer these questions, because I want to go back to follow along with the questions that we are directed, the characters should be asking of each other. And starting with Almondine the Firelight, in this area, this hillock area, questions we have to talk about. Ask one to the left and one to the right. So a couple of questions here. This is, when did you lead me back into the light? This is a question of the firefly. What did I show you that you didn't want to see? Why does my firefly like you so much? Where do you wish I could guide you, and why can't I? If we note the questions that the pilgrim has, the pilgrim's questions somewhat mirror this. How did you save me when my inexperience tripped me up? What is it about you that makes me comfortable telling you my doubts? What do you know about the place that I seek and haven't yet grasped? And does our faith still fill your heart with hope? So the pilgrim and the guardian the pilgrim and the firelight, seem to be linked in some way. And the pilgrim is, again, this conflicted character who is the wanderer, and the guardian, the firelight, has the way, basically the way forward. So what I need now is I need to bring in, or to understand, something thematic about this seeking, this journey, this quest. And to get that, I'm going to go to a table from the Solo GM Guide, which is an action and theme oracle. And these are D100 tables that are going to give me some keywords to help me shape what is just a very open-ended question. So in terms of the action, we rolled, that's just a 30 there. So we have focus, and let's see if you can, sorry, these aren't great for video. Focus and 54. Focus on a creature. So we are focusing on a creature with this feeling of journeying. We are perhaps seeking to find some type of creature, and we noted that Akio the Pilgrim was seeking the home of a teacher who knows the secret to serenity. So perhaps this journey is a one toward serenity. That Akio is the character, to the extent that there's been so far any type of conflict. We have seen that Akio has been conflicted in a sense, because their faith is one of permanence and linking to a place, and yet in some way they are a wanderer and they are seeking the teacher, and they are carrying with them this book of poems, and the sense that the written word, the expression of emotion in the written word can create reality. But they have a conflict about that. And we are given this sense that the journey has to do with a focus on a creature, and the reason why the pilgrim is trusting the firelight to bring them on this journey is because they have confidence that they can be helped toward this teacher or this creature. And meanwhile, we also have the guardian here, and we don't know how the guardian fits in or is connected to these two. And the guardian with the ward is another interesting question. Protective, parental, unconditional. Let's look at the questions about the guardian that we need to ask ourselves, or ask our others, really. Why does my ward look up to you, and why does that bother me? What was I like before I found my ward? When was the last time my ward really irritated you? Do you follow through with your responsibilities to my ward, and what are they? So this is really directed about the ward, and I definitely feel here that there is a connection between the ward being lost and found near a battlefield and having this journal, basically, that was a rebellion journal. I think that the ward is trying to escape a place of violence, perhaps, and we have this sense here. Maybe they're here because they also want to join on this journey toward the teacher who knows the secret to serenity. I'm feeling like, as I think about this, that the teacher could be the teacher who has the secret to serenity. We mentioned this concept of a witch, or somebody that made this necklace, this protective necklace. Now, it's protective against bugs, but thematically protective against that external world that is perhaps seeking to be aggressive. That perhaps this teacher of serenity is some type of witch, a good witch perhaps, living somewhere, and they are journeying toward her. So that's what I'm getting here. And they're gathered together. The ward is the next generation. They're explicitly mentioned a child, something that will carry through in life into new stories and into new ways of being. And maybe they are the next leader. Maybe this is the child is the next leader, and the guardian is somebody who is tasked with getting the ward to a teacher who will properly instruct them on how to make the world a kinder place, a better place, and that the fact that this ward was plucked out of battle is symbolic, and the ward has a gift, and the gift is going to be revealed when they get to the teacher. We also remember that they have this scar placed by the oracular pensive god, that maybe this god has marked this person for greater things, and greater things being a higher level of existence in serenity and peace. So with that all in mind, let's go back to answer the questions a little bit more about where we are, this hillock. It says, describe what we stand in the shadows of. Really, that's what I was doing, that we are leaving a place of destruction and enmity and fighting, and trying to get to a place of serenity, or at least get to a place where there is a teacher or teachers who can aid us, and in particular in protecting this child to get to the next generation. And I don't know what the threat is that's yet up ahead. I think we're going to discover that. What we're worried about is that there's going to be the journey to serenity is a long one, and is one that is going to be filled with some type of threats. I suppose we could actually roll up some sort of kith or something. I don't know. That would be a threat. We're gonna get there. I will say, as an aside here, the concept of the tokens. You're not going to see me using any tokens in this demo. really because I'm just playing all of this coming out of my own creative thought. So it doesn't really make sense to do that. I think if you were playing this with a group, you would, and I'll talk more about that when I get to my final thoughts on this rule set. I should say on this game, really. All right, aesthetic elements. I think that we're here with, we are in a deep gorge to sort of represent, this is really a place that we're leaving that we wouldn't necessarily want to come back to, with some scattered fragments of civilization here, that it's in the foothills of a great and looming presence. I think that is thematically representing what we've been talking about. I'm going to make notes of all of this. Maybe we would come back and investigate a little bit more, but right now I think we're going to be deciding where we're going. And the folklore about the place, I think it's going to be the fallen star and the story she told, because perhaps this place used to be part of the other place that was the good place, that was the serene place, and now it has been overcome by this evil or whatever. And the fallen star, there is folklore that at one point a fallen star came to tell stories about the past glory of this place. So that makes sense to me. So where are we going? How are we setting out? And to determine that, we're going to go right to the book. And so we're going into the section called Natures, and it says natures are the building blocks of places. They inform the aesthetic trappings and symbols, the world surrounding it, and how it shapes the people who engage with it. Okay, so it says we can use this table to choose, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to roll 2d6. The black one is going to be the general, and the green one's going to be the specific. So we're going to start to build the place 4 and 6 of where we are traveling to. Ooh, it's desolate. It's a desolate mountain. The mountain is the place where the earth meets the sky. This place can always describe what can be seen from way up here, show someone pushed to desperate extremes, isolate someone from everyone else and give them a token. Well, you know what? It can also be a place of elevation. I think that symbolically, thematically, that makes sense. We're trying to get to this place of elevation. We have some aesthetic elements. It could have sharp cliffs and a treacherous path, again, thematically, that it is hard to journey from a place of trauma and despair, perhaps, and difficulty to get to a place of serenity. And the folklore here, well, if this is a place of serenity, the folklore might be where the gentle giants fought, that this is in the past, that even the giants lived here, and dating all the way back to the olden times when the giants ruled the world, that this is where they were. To give a little more narrative direction, I'm going to roll my who, what, where, when, why die, and we got who. So who is going to lead us in the direction of essentially rolling up an NPC. They're called Kith in Wanderhome, and let's see how we do this. So this, just to pause to look at the really incredible art in this book. There's different artistic styles. The artists are all credited at the front of the book. It's not one artist, and it's very enchanting and absolutely appropriate and really involving. You can imagine us traveling along here and encountering somebody. So we are going to, so the way we're going to build up this person or this creature really is we're going to roll on these tables. There's 7 categories of traits. It says you can use the first 6 as a table to roll randomly on, or you can pick whichever ones feel correct. We're going to go random here, and we're going to take the first 6, and we'll do the same thing I did before. So we'll roll black and green, so 1 and 5, that we are encountering, ooh, somebody glamorous, and they're also indicated as magical in some way. We can give them a traumatized trait as well. That's a D12 roll. I'm going to do that because I just am. So let's get out our D12. For some reason, I never have D12s ready. I don't know why. I'd be interested to know in the comments if that is a common problem for people. I just never have a D12 handy. Okay, we rolled an 8. So they're nervous. Oh, nervous just like the firefly. All right. So we have some descriptions, page numbers. So let's see. They're glamorous and they are nervous. And let's see what the book has to say about all of this. Glamorous. A glamorous kith has a beguiling and enchanting appearance that is both beautiful and impossible. They are often kaleidoscopic insects, flirtatious demons, and especially skilled makeup artists, among others. They can dazzle and stun everyone or reveal the appearance you hide underneath. They can tell someone to look at you. If they want to look away, they're going to need to spend a token. All right, so we have this prompt, and then we also know that they are nervous. And let's look and see what that has to say. A nervous kith is very stressed out. They are often freaked out kids. I'm not feeling that. Princes out of their depth, and those overwhelmed by the many dangers of the world, among others. They can worry about something they don't have control over. They can say, I'm sorry. They can ask, is everything okay? Well, the first thing that I'm sensing from this is glamorous says to me royalty. We're going back to this theme of some type of palace. I'm feeling like there is this ward is an escaped. Rayed the ward is a prince, and so I'm going to even change his name right now to Prince Rayed the ward. Prince Rayed the ward somehow escaped, that they were found near this battlefield, and that this creature, which we are going to develop a little bit more, is also an escapee, flew out perhaps from the palace, and is an early harbinger for us of whether we're going in the right direction or whether we're not going in the right direction. We might take this die and just roll that way to see what we get. However, I really want to get a better sense of this creature. And for this, I'm going to need to leave Wanderhome and think about what else I can bring in here that's going to help me identify this glamorous yet nervous creature. So as we are wandering along, we come across this creature here that is a kind of almost like a water elemental, kind of fairy type of creature. And that is the who that we have encountered. And we know from the way Wanderhome works that the actions, as it were, of the various characters are described in what they're always able to do. And our pilgrim is always able to chatter away. So the pilgrim is going to question this creature and try to find out if we are going, if the creature maybe is from the place. I feel like we're traveling to a place that may be the opposite of the destroyed and evil kingdom that the ward was cast out of. Maybe we're trying to get to some other type of castle. Maybe that is the place of serenity, this kind of mythical kingdom. So while the pilgrim chatters away, the guardian is always able to keep a watchful eye on someone. So the guardian is watching and being aware of what might be going on in the environment and whether we are under any type of threat. And the pilgrim is chattering away and asking this creature a question. I think we're just going to go straight yes or no, and we'll roll this d20 for our answers. The first question we want to know is are you from the place that we are going to? How about that? Are you from the place that we are going to? And we got a yes, but so yes, they do respond. They are from that place, but they themselves have been cast out, and perhaps they have been exiled as well. They cannot return. They cannot return to that place. And so so at this point, the ward takes out the journal that he has, the one that was owned by the King's Council, and its history, its enchantment was that it was seen as a source of rebellion against that kingdom. And we want to know, do these creatures show any kind of recognition of this journal? Oh, wow. And we got a 20 on that. So we got a yes and. So there is a great response from them. Not only do they recognize this, but they can, I think it said, let's see, the journal automatically copies down everything the user dictates in neat handwriting. So they take this journal, and not only do they recognize it, but they start to interpret some of the things that it says, and they beckon us to follow them. And this is a sign perhaps that for them, that we are maybe good people, that we are part of the rebellious group, the peaceful rebellious group that is trying to restore order to the land. And they had been trying to do that as well, which is why they were exiled, as we saw. But we are going to follow them. Perhaps they're going to lead us more directly to the place. I'm feeling it's like some type of other kingdom, other castle. Maybe it has hidden itself away from the evil lands, and there is a secret way into it that these creatures are going to show us. And in that case, perhaps they'll show our firefly, our guiding light. They will bestow some magical energy on our firefly to start to go toward this castle to restore the ward, the prince, to that place. I mean, that's where I'm feeling that the story is going. Now, I'll say I'm going to stop here, I think, because to me, developing this further, what this needs, what I would do, is I would need to pull in external material. And the thing that I would go to, just in terms of what I have, it's not the only thing that you could use, is this wilderness dressing book, because I know that it has in here, for example, there's castle dressing, castle names, castle hooks, small ruins. There's something I'm feeling like we are approaching, or we're going to be going to a castle. So for example, here, this is a percentage die. Let's just see, for example, if we roll that percentage die to get a castle that we're going to, we rolled a 51. What would that be? An enormous hollowed-out mushroom comprises the body of this bizarre tower. Oh, well, that makes thematic sense, because we're here in the beautiful wilderness. And in fact, in Wanderhome, I want to just show you some more of the art that is in the book. This one is actually, I would say, almost uncharacteristic of the rest of it, which is a little gentler, I would say, for lack of a better word. Let me readjust this camera. Okay, now I can give you a better sense. We may have already looked at this one already as a journey picture. That this is probably the closest you get in this book to what would be considered to be like a dark artistic rendering. Most of it is much more pastoral or kind of calm. And yet, what I feel this needs, especially oddly when soloing it as I am doing, is a bit more supporting material. I could just continue storytelling with this and make up something myself, but in a strange way, because this is designed to be played collaboratively with a group, even just two people, not one of whom needs to be a GM type, I think it does require more of a back and forth communication. As the soloist playing it, as I'm trying to do, I think it's more an exercise, as I said at the outset of the video, in getting some general prompts and then just thinking of a story yourself. And because it is so mechanics very light, it serves as the baseline of those prompts, as I said. To fit it more into something like akin to a solo role-playing session with responses to prompts, I think you do need to go outside it. And I did already do that a little bit in the video, but I'm really trying to stick mostly to what is in here in Wanderhome, which is why I'm stopping now, because I don't think, anyone needs to see me rolling up a random castle and then going to someplace else and rolling up some random encounters in there, etc. Because that is away from the heart of what Wanderhome is. And I think, as I said, for the pure soloist, what Wanderhome offers is a beautiful world that you can enter and use to get narrative prompts and create a story for yourself. As you know, if you watch my channel, I don't do a lot of writing at all when I solo. It's just not what I like to do. I don't think it's necessary to do that, and I don't do it. But I think in Wanderhome, it could be an excellent way to create a journal of a story of these characters and continue to expand upon that and their connections. One thing I wish it did more was on the KIF section. I have to say I struggled myself to come up with something to be more evocative than what was presented here. And I think that unless you were playing this with people who were very seasoned at kind of creating fantastical creatures and ideas and concepts from fairly limited prompts, you might encounter that as well. I wish there had been a little bit more developed here that than existed to help you create and sort of flesh out the creatures that you encounter, because I think that adds a lot of robustness to the story, and it puts the burden on the player quite a bit to do that. I do really want to show you some of the art in here, which I'll just do digitally while I talk a bit, because it's so beautiful. And I also appreciate the fact that the author has given a artistic credits page, an art guide here. It would have been nice actually to have like URLs or something of these artists so that we could further investigate who they are, because some of the art is just amazing, and it really does serve to lend a feel to this book. In sum, I would say that Wanderhome tries to do something very different than most tabletop role-playing games that I have encountered, and it, as such, I think there were places where I missed a little bit more supporting material. Because, for example, when I paused the video to try to kind of go through my RPG material to come up with some glamorous creature that could be the creature we encountered visually and also conceptually, I recognized that because Wanderhome is doing something so different, it was hard for me to find that. And I have a pretty decent library of supporting material. So I think that could become challenging for players to have that burden on themselves to develop it, as I already said. That said, this is a great collaborative storytelling platform. And I think with a group of friends who are interested in communal storytelling and who are interested in themes of joy and prioritizing good things and empathy and helping things, this is a great source book and a great framework for play. If you're looking for something that has more rules, even light rules, if you're looking for a way to roll dice in a game, you won't find that here. The dice that I rolled, I brought into the game to create some artificial randomness, but there's no die rolling in this game. It's a diceless system, and indeed there's very little mechanics at all. There was the token system that I did not use. The other thing I want to say is I sort of omitted this whole concept of the weather and the seasons and the rituals and things. I felt that for what I was trying to do here, that was extra apparatus that would have taken up a lot of time to explain and set up. And in the limited space of a video, I didn't want to focus on that. I wanted to focus more on creating the characters and their interactions and story. But there is a whole other framework here about, I think it's 10, there are 5 seasons with 2 months in each, and they are described. There's bright and breathe and silt and chill, and it's a great concept, and it is further fleshed out in that section of the book where they are talking about what can happen there, what does happen during these seasons, and rituals that are part of the seasons. And I think that adding that layer to storytelling would be important because it does give yet another framework and another layer from the actual source material itself. I think to play this as a soloist, I would recommend, or I would recommend approaching it thinking you might need some other supplemental material to develop the part of the journey, for example, that you're going on, or what you're actually encountering when you get there. Because even the natures and things that are in here, it's all very framework oriented and question oriented. And if you're looking for something that has a little more support, you'll have to find it outside of this source book. But Wanderhome is, I'm really glad I encountered it. And it's interesting because I noticed on the back here, the blurb on the back of the book is from Avery Alder, who is the author of A Quiet Year. And or I should say the creator, well, the creator, the designer, the author of A Quiet Year, which I did do on the channel. And I'll try to remember to put a link to that up here. In feeling, this is somewhat similar in a way, that there's a peacefulness to it, there is a calm to it, and that is just something that's not typically in TTRPGs, and it is something that, as I said at the outset of the video, when I started to think about my own approach to gaming, even though I think it is not heavy in conflict, I wouldn't describe it as heavy in conflict, this game really made me realize how endemic to just the entire concept of TTRPGs that type of conflict actually is. Perhaps that's a naive thing to say, but this was highlighted that very much. So that's a look inside Wanderhome. It is a unique set of constructs, rules, questions, narrative prompts by J Dragon, and available at the URL below.